Welcome to the Ratals.com installation videos, part 2, where we're going to set up the server with our domain name, email address, database, and so on. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump right over into our A2 hosting web hosting account. And this is the page you're going to come to right after you log in with A2 hosting. And most hosting companies, not all, but most, use a software called Control Panel or cPanel. They're the same thing. And so that's what we're looking for in this situation with A2 hosting, because they use Control Panel. And so we're going to click on this button right here that says Control Panel. Now, if your hosting company doesn't use Control Panel, you're essentially going to be looking for these similar things, but it might just be inside a different manager panel of whatever they created or whatever they use. But in A2 hosting, we use cPanel. And so we're going to click on this button here to go to our cPanel, which is here. Now, one of the reasons why I really like A2 hosting is that a lot of hosting companies will modify their control panel here to make it look themed to their brand, right? Is a way of putting it. And when they do that, a lot of times they'll remove a whole bunch of control panel features and kind of leaving you with half or sometimes less than half of the features that are available in cPanel. One of the reasons why I really like A2 hosting is because they've kept pretty much all the features that cPanel offers for managing everything in the hosting account, which is really nice. And so what we're going to do first in here, though, is we're going to add our domain. So we're going to go down here to our domain area, and we're going to click on our domains here, okay? And you'll notice that I have a couple domains in here already. If you signed up with someone like A2 hosting and you bought your domain through them, meaning you didn't go over to like GoDaddy and buy your domain and it's in separate places, if you bought your domain and hosting at the same place, you're likely going to see your domain set up in here already. So you can see here the Ratals.com domain and robcuppet.com. That's my personal domain. But you can see here that they're set up under this folder called public_HTML. That's the document root. This document root is important in making sure that you add this in when you're creating or adding your domains. I'm going to show you why it's important and what it means. So I'm going to go back over here to our control panel, and I'm going to go up here to our file manager. Okay, I'm going to open this up. This is where all of our files or directories are at for our server, for our hosting account. And so down here, you can see that public_HTML that I was referring to on the other page. Let me go back to it here where it talks about public_HTML. So what this means is we're going to put all of our files for this website or this software, whatever it is we're doing, we're going to put everything inside this public_HTML, and then we're going to put it inside the folder called Ratals or Rob Cuppet. Okay, so if I go into this right here, this public_HTML, you can see there are my two folders. This holds all the records for Ratals, and all the files are records for Rob Cuppet. When those domains are requested, this is where they load from, okay? And so if we don't put public_HTML in here, what's going to end up happening is it's going to end up over here inside of our main side menu and not inside of our main root or main web files. So it'll end up in here and not in here, okay? Now that's okay if you want to run your domains out of here, but that's just kind of not typical in the way you set things up. Typically, you put them inside your public_HTML. Now this is, of course, how, again, cPanel does it, right? And so the majority of hosting companies are going to be this way, but if you happen to be on a different type of manager panel, it may not be called public_HTML. They might have called it something different, but typically we still put all of our website folders together where all of our files are going to be. Okay, so with all that being said, we're going to add our domain because we didn't buy our domain at A2 hosting. We bought it at GoDaddy, so we have to add it. And this is an existing hosting account I have already, so I already have a couple other domains in here. But what we're going to do is we're going to go into, again, you won't have to do this step if it's already added here because you bought your domain and hosting all at the same place. You won't have to do this step. The domain should already be in here. So, but what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and hit create a new domain. And the domain we bought is ratalsdemo.com, right? And what this is doing is when you're adding it, cPanel does a check, and I believe hosting companies can turn this feature off if they don't want it, but I think most leave it on. What it does is it goes over and says, hey, is ratalsdemo.com already pointing to us? Remember those NS name servers that we set up in the first video that where you point your domain here? So it's checking, hey, is this domain already pointing here before we allow this domain to be added? Some check it, some, I believe some don't, but with that being said, we're gonna add Ratals demo into this account. So just make sure you've pointed your domain over so you don't get caught up in this area that you pointed or not. Now down here is where we set up our document root that we were talking about, putting it in that public underscore HTML. And you can see right here it's telling us our document root is public underscore HTML. And so what we're gonna do is I don't like a .com in the end of my folders. If you like them, you can leave them. It's fine. It's up to you and how you want to set it up. Your folder names. But I'm going to go ahead and put in here public underscore HTML like this. Now, you don't have to put the slash in front. cPanel is pretty smart. It'll pick up that you're putting it in the public underscore HTML because this is the common place to put it. But I'm going to put it in there just because. So public underscore HTML / Ratals demo. So this is where our folder is going to be, where we're going to put all the Ratals files to run everything. It's going to go inside this folder, okay, when we upload everything. And then on our subdomain, cPanel requires a subdomain to be built. I don't need .com in there. I can tell it's Ratals demo. And then this is kind of a temporary domain that the hosting company will give you with cPanel to say, hey, if you need to view stuff as a temporary situation, you can. But we have our own domain, so we don't need it. So, but to clean it up, I just took the .com off of it because we already got a .com off over here. So we set up our domain name. We set up our document root of where we're going to store everything with public underscore HTML, then the folder name, right? So we make sure we're in this folder and we don't end up over in the side. I think I still have it open, so we don't end up in the side over here. Okay. And then now we're just going to go ahead and submit. Now this takes about 10, 15 seconds for it to add everything for the domain. That was very fast to set it up. And so now we can see that we're inside our public underscore HTML. Now, if you mess this up and you happen to just be / Ratals demo, you forgot to put the public underscore HTML in here, you can go over here to manage and you can go add it and it'll move it into that public underscore HTML. You can move it pretty easily. And it shows us our domain that we're set up under. So now we have our domain set up. I'm going to go ahead and close this. And we're going to go back over here to our file manager. So I'm going to reload this. And if we go into our public underscore HTML, now we can see there's our Ratals demo. So we got it set up there perfectly. And so now we can upload our files into here, which we're going to do in just a couple of minutes. I'm going to delete this CGI bin. Don't need it. Okay, that they automatically put in there by default. I'm just going to go ahead and close this for a second because we don't need that for just a minute. So we added our domain name, and now we have where we're going to put our files. But first, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go create our email address. Our software sends out emails, such as like, thank you for your order shipped, just as an example. We only require one email address though when you're setting our software up, and it uses it for everything. Then you can go in and you can modify the email addresses for different types of emails later. But for simplicity, we just require one email address to be set up just to get the software set up. So I'm just going to go ahead and here click create, add an email address or create, and I'm going to select the domain we want this email address for, which is going to be our Ratals demo. And I'm going to go ahead and just call it support. Support's kind of a random email address, whether it's like, hey, here's your confirmation or thanks for creating an account or whatever it be. So it's just going to be support@ratalsdemo.com. And and the software automatically fills it into support by default. Okay. Just because it's an easy random, then you can, if you chose a different email address, you could just change it in the software. And I'll show you that when we get to that point. But I'm going to just stick with support because it's easy. So I'm going to go ahead now and create a password for this email address. So it's going to be support@ratalsdemo because we selected ratalsdemo.com up here. Put our password in, what we're going to use for it. I'm just going to hit create. It created it for us, and now we see our email address. Okay, that's all we need to do for an email address so that we have a place to send emails from within the software. Next, we're going to go and we're going to create our database. We're going to use the database wizard down here. Let's see, where is it? Right here, database wizard. So we're going to use this. There's multiple things we can use for. We can use this manage databases here, but it's a little bit more complex. So I'm not going to use that. This is better to manage your databases once they're created, and this is and then this is where you actually edit your databases, you know, when you want to modify stuff directly in the database. But I'm going to go here to the wizard. And the reason why I'm using the wizard is because it just takes us through easy steps. So I'm going to go ahead and just call it Ratals demo. So I'm creating the database name, and we're just going to call it Ratals demo. And I'm going to copy this name because I'm going to use it for the username too, which will be on the next step. But this is going to be our database name, and it includes this in the front, which is our server name, plus this is what the hosting company just gives us. They sign it randomly when you sign up. So it gives us that plus our username. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next. And we're going to use the same thing for our username. So this is going to be the user that connects to the database. So we have to give a password to this user when we connect to the database. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a password here. And create user. And so we created our user and our password to be the same thing. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it in Notepad here just so I have it later so I'm not trying to find it, okay? And now it's asking us what permissions do we want this user to have when it connects to this database. So when the user of Ratals demo connects to the database of Ratals demo, because we named them the same, what do we want to let it do? What do we want this user to be able to do? What do we want to let it alter the database? Do we want to let it create things, delete things, select things, update things? Yeah, we want to let it do all of these things. So I'm just going to select all privileges and hit next for this user, what it can do in this database. Your database is completed. So now we have a database set up. So that's all we need to do from the database standpoint. We created the database name, username, and password, okay? And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to go and download the software on Ratals.com. So I'm going to go over here to Ratals.com, and I'm going to go to our downloads here where we can download the software. And our server currently is set up on PHP 8.2. I know that already. And I'm going to show you where you can check that in just a second. But I'm going to go ahead and hit download so this begins to download up here. And while that's downloading, it takes about 30 seconds, 45 seconds. It's 1.6 megabytes currently. But while that's downloading, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where you can check your PHP version. So you can go into this select PHP version right here. I'm going to open that up, and it's going to show you right in your cPanel what your current version is, what you're running on. And we're currently running on 8.2. And you can adjust this. The current stable version from PHP is 8.3, 8.2, 8.1. Currently, that software I just downloaded supports all of these. I've just left it on 8.2 because I haven't come in here to change it. But while we're in here, there's one thing that we should actually do, that you should do, is turn on this zip right here. This is really important because when we download updates for the software, it needs to be able to unzip the file that it downloads to do the update. So if you ever restart your server, or your server gets restarted, or you ever change, your PHP version to 8.3, because let's say we want to run on the new one. If you ever do that, you're going to have to come in here and reset this because this is not a default on setting. You have to make sure it gets turned on. So if you're ever doing an update and the software says you have to go turn on your zip capabilities, this is where you turn it on. And we'll make a separate video for just that by itself, but that's where you come and turn it on. So I'm on 8.2. So the software has finished downloading. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this over to my desktop. So I move my screen over so you can see the top area here. And I'm going to pull this over onto my desktop, okay? So I can have it here on my local machine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my file manager now, and I'm just going to upload it. I'm actually going to upload it in the next video. So let's pause here, go to the next video, and we're going to start working on uploading the software to where we can see the files in our public_HTML. See you in the next video.